Denver Broncos Mile High View, no commercials, no bullshit. So the question is, what makes Chuck Pagano the Denver Broncos' new head coach? This would be, in my opinion, the circumstance which you would see Chuck Pagano as the team's official head coach selection. First, I want to say that I don't have anything against Chuck Pagano. I think that he possibly could work somewhere else under a completely different circumstance. None of the coaching candidates that the Broncos are interviewing, in my opinion, are going to help this situation out at all. If I own the Denver Broncos, I would have the GM. We would be doing bold things. We would be trying to go outside the box the best we could. None of the coaching candidates right now, really, in my opinion, are going to do anything. Maybe they could under different circumstances. Wouldn't throw them all out. But for the Denver Broncos right now, I don't believe that any of them really would do them any good. What you have to do is you have to do bold things. You have to think outside the box. You can't just be dictated to, they say we have to talk to these people. No. I would, if I was the owner of the Denver Broncos, I would get the GM to make phone calls to the New Orleans Saints to try to get their offensive coordinator, or to the Seattle Seahawks, as an example, to get Schottenheimer, pay off their contracts, bring them in to bring in a whole new system. Okay, and you may not agree those guys are the answer either. Okay, but they definitely have a lot more going for them than what's out there. We can debate that. So I think what they're doing isn't going to help either way. With that said, I don't have anything against Chuck Pagano. Okay, I think, like I was saying, I think that if he was under a different circumstance, perhaps he could be a good head coach. I always felt that the Colts, the dues on Peyton Manning and the team around him finally came up, and it happened to be on Chuck Pagano's watch. Okay, and that affected Andrew Luck as player personnel disintegrated around him. They had to pay off old debts and rebuild. So when Chuck Pagano had the player personnel around a quarterback in the caliber of Andrew Luck, he was, did as good as any of them out there. So, again, under certain circumstances, sure. So this isn't a Chuck Pagano bash, but this is how it would work in Denver. If Chuck Pagano becomes the Denver Broncos head coach, what you're going to see is they have saddled up to the idea, that is, Elway and Ellis have saddled up to the idea that Gary Kubiak is going to run the offense, and that would also include John Elway. Come on, they both would run the offense. Obviously Kubiak would be the more prominent figure in it, but Elway would certainly have his meddling fingers in that. There's no doubt about that. So that would be the situation, and of course they would tell Chuck, look, all you really have to do is just get this defense squared away. You think you can get a defensive coordinator to come and you guys work you handle the defensive end of the equation. Now, I want to say this too. The Broncos still have debt to pay with the former coaching staff of Coach Vance Joseph. So, economically, do you keep some of these coaches, or, Pagano, the way it looks like, it's just like, whatever you say, Mr. Elway, whatever you say. And so is Elway just going to keep some coaching staff around for budgetary reasons? I mean, this is one of the problems by getting rid of Vance Joseph when he did. If you wait for everybody's contracts to go up, then you don't have to worry about when you bring the new coaching staff in, you're paying old coaches. So you got more of a budget to work with on new coaches. Because let's face it, real coaches that come in, they want to pick their own people. That's just the way it is, for better, for worse, but that's the way it is. So for Chuck Pagano to work out in Denver, he's definitely going to be a yes man. There's no, basically you're just getting Vance Joseph, even in a lesser capacity. And obviously he's already figured out that he's going to be set up so if Kubiak and Elway screw the offense up, he's the guy, he's the head coach, right? So, he's the one that's going to pay the ultimate price. So, that's the deal. And I think that's what you're going to get. I think ideally what the Broncos would want, from what I'm saying, I think from their point of view, or the way I see it, is what they're looking at is that most ideal situation is to bring in the defensive coordinator from the Bears and have him work his magic on the defense. Say they keep the special teams coach, who hasn't done all that bad. I don't know if it's been all that great either, but it hasn't been a complete disaster. So maybe they keep him. So we got special teams, you got defense. And of course, Elway and Kubiak running the offense. That, to me, I think they would want the Bears defensive coordinator as the head coach. I don't believe they're going to get that, and that's why I think Chuck Pagano is there. He's like the ace in the hole. If they can't get some of these coaches, and then you got the offensive line coach for, let's face it, they could use him as an offensive line coach, no matter what the thinking over at Mile High Report is. They certainly could use help at the offensive line. I mean, there's a lot of work there. But with somebody that's an offensive line coach want to come in and become a head coach, then he's got to worry about both the defense now and somebody, taking over the offense completely with no control. I just don't see him going for that either. And the only way these guys would go for something like that, they would have to pay them an awful lot of money. Much more than they're worth, in my opinion, to get the candidate they want. That's the only way I think they can get a candidate that they want. Outside of Chuck Pagano, they'd have to pay them an awful lot of money to bring him in. So Chuck Pagano would be your next head coach if nobody else really comes, volunteers their services for no matter what the price is, or, they pay a lot of money to get somebody. I mean, a lot. And I don't think anybody in this coaching core that's being thrown out there is worth all that much money. So Chuck Pagano, really, for them anyway, from their point of view, probably looks like a really good fit if they're planning on the go the way with Kubiak running the offense and John Elway also running the offense. That's how I see it working out. So we shall see.